Hello, everybody, and after several months, we are back with a new edition of Uncut History. What'd you think of the new intro? It is one of the intros to ever intro. I assure you. There are many layers. There are several inside jokes, all wrapped into that minute and 30 seconds of the Star Spangled Banner. I'll be very curious to see if somebody in the comment section can name every reference that is in that new intro. And I'm not done with it. I'm going to toy with it, tinker with it. I wanted to use something like Battle Cry of Freedom, but I can't really find a good royalty-free Battle Cry of Freedom. I liked using it in the past, but I was technically using, I think it was the 8th Illinois regimental band. I was using their version, so I kept getting copyright notices every time I would go live. It was worth it, but I'm trying to, as the channel grows, I'm trying to avoid those copyright claims more and more. So I was like, I need something for Epidemic Sound. They have no Battle Cry of Freedom, no Battle Hymn of the Republic. I'm like, do you have a Star Spangled Banner? Okay. Then I thought, well, let's get groovy with it, and we'll use the electric guitar version of the Star Spangled Banner. And then I realized I hate the electric guitar version of the Star Spangled Banner. Not that I don't think it's cool sound, but they drag it on. I guess everybody thinks because Jimi Hendrix and his Woodstock performance of it goes on for like 3 minutes, they must presume every electric guitar variant of our national anthem has to go on for 3+ minutes. Unless you're adapting the entire poem, there's no need to go beyond 1.5 minutes. Please. So I found this piano version for the time being. If anybody has any suggestions on how we can tweak the intro, by all means, I'm probably going to throw a different... So I'll change it up, maybe change in and out the characters as we go down the pipeline. I mean, if I find a true, nice rock version, the Star Spangled Banner I could use, that'd be great. But it got to be 1 minute and 30 seconds. I'm not doing the 3-hour drag fest. How is everybody doing tonight? Outright History is in the chat. He loves the Burbs reference. I am glad. You recognize Lieutenant Rumsfeld in the intro. Truly an American hero. Whole lot of Hola from Wrangler. He's tuning in. And boy, do we actually have a stack of stuff for once. That's part of the reason we haven't done an Uncut History in months. It's because I've been so busy between my day job, going out and making videos for this channel, and then several other historical projects I'm involved with in my local community. I haven't had time to like sit down, go on the interwebs, and kind of just jot down, I'd love to talk about that. Because my idea is sometimes I like going in depth on a certain subject matter on these live streams. You guys are probably all familiar when we did the Overland campaign for the 160th anniversary of those Civil War battles. We went in depth, battle by battle. I love doing those. They're very labor intensive. I mean, that's basically making a video in and of itself, all the research that went into them. So I can't do those in-depth lectures all the time for Uncut History. So other times I need stuff like the preservation shout-outs, where I just go find some cool historic sites or preservation projects I want to give attention to. But that requires me to have a little free time to scour the interwebs or talk with somebody beyond what I'm researching already. Yeah, I swear at any time I have like a half a dozen projects, not counting the next episode of Retracing History. I just got other stuff laying around. I think I know which one you're talking about, but it just ain't my cup of tea. I need if I could get like a cool like rock version of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, I'd be kind of down for that. I know there was a Civil War strategy game, and they had a soundtrack, and they had a really good version of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. They had they weren't, I guess I'd call it like acoustic rock, if that makes any sense, where it's like, it's not, it's not like that. It's a little more, you have an electric guitar, but it's still at a slower pace. That had some spice in it. If I could get my hands on that, a version like that, I'd be happy. But I want to give I've heard a lot of content creators out there give a lot of flack toward the Star Spangled Banner. And I, for one, do not like that. Don't get me wrong. It's not the most peppiest song. It's not the most fist clenching. Yeah, America, F yeah. That would be a battle cry of freedom. That's what that song is for. That song is awesome. Gets you hyped up. all the time. But everybody's like, it's just we just kind of took a poem and then in the 1930s decided, let's just put it to a drinking song and call it our national anthem. But that just so devalues what Francis Scott Key's whole poem was about and what the stanzas that become the national anthem, what they represent. I'm, of course, talking about the Battle of Baltimore, the siege of Fort McHenry, and more people need to know why the Star Spangled Banner was written and understand the epic story behind the entire, I guess you want to call the whole Chesapeake Bay campaign, the War of 1812. Oh, look, Redoubt Productions singing the praises of the War of 1812 for the umpteenth time. That's like a trope on the channel now. And I would be remiss to not mention that Wrangler popped in with a 420. Good, that's still working. Very good. David Gilmour is still on standby. I like my Stars and Stripes Forever and Washington Post personally. Not bad. I'll have to consider those. Keep those in mind. And tonight I got a little experimental of our beverage. It is only a Wednesday, but it is very cold also in Pennsylvania. And boy, do I have a hankering for some hot alcoholic beverages. Just enough just to keep me on my toes for the rest of the night. Although by now it's a little bit more like lukewarm alcoholic beverage. Inside here is half a cup of Rebel Red from the Adams County Winery that is I tempted to turn into some type of mulled spiced wine. You were supposed to have a cup for the recipe. I only had half a cup left in the bottle, and I didn't want to mix it with my other red wine I have unopened because I'm now out of Rebel Red, which is very sad. I'll have to make another trip to Gettysburg. Not that that's a problem. I have to make a weekend excuse to go to Gettysburg. I need to make an alcohol run. Oh no. Oh no. I have to drive 3 hours to Gettysburg. What a nightmare. What I was saying was the other wine I have, it's more of a fruitier red wine. I enjoy it, but I didn't want to mix the two together. I feel Rebel Red's a much smoother, where this other one has a little more punch to it. I don't know what would happen if I try to mix the two to make a cup. We may have a disaster of a stream on our hands. Although most of these streams are a disaster. So threw in the lemon slice, put in some bag of spice to brew in there, and I don't know, man. I'm not good when it comes to steeping teas or other spices into drinks. I just don't get a strong flavor regardless. Apparently, I'm never doing it right. I do it for a minute. I do it for 3 minutes. They tell me if I go beyond 5 minutes, I'm doing it too long for hot drinks. I'm an American. I drink coffee in the morning. So, what are we going to talk about today? What are we going to talk about? Hold on one moment. Sorry, I had some alert thing pop up on the computer. Any things to know about visiting Gettysburg in the fall and plan on making a trip out there soon? Going to Gettysburg in the fall is a great time to go see Gettysburg. October is actually the busiest month, at least in my opinion, like actually for visitation beyond July. And I think it's because the season's changing. So people want to come outside more before it gets really cold. You have that Indian summer environment. So there's a lot of people out, a lot of paranormal tourists. So you have a lot of people in October, but once you get to November, beyond Remembrance Day, things start to space out. The big advantage when you go to Gettysburg or any battlefield in the fall, leaves are coming off or leaves will already be down. So you get a better idea of the topography of the land that may otherwise be masked by the foliage. So you're not going to see it as the soldiers saw it, but you get to see all this topography that, they were kind of stamping into and caused some headaches during their maneuvers during the battles. So that's one big advantage of going to any site like Gettysburg. Remembrance Day is, what is that? I could be wrong. Let me look at my calendar. What is that? That should either be the 15th or the 22nd of November. Big parade going on in Gettysburg that weekend. They'll have all the reenactors going down the street. I think did I just delete? Oh no. I was going through my clips here on StreamYards. I had for a while a clip of me going down. actually being part of the Remembrance Day parade, and I can't find her, and also I'll show it to you, Outright History. Everything, some of the museums are probably going to be, the private museums will be closing down at the end of October, though they should be open around Remembrance Day weekend. Just about everything's, even if they're closed for the season, they try to be open for that weekend. And we'll talk a bit about Gettysburg later on, like the Shriver House and the infamous AC unit. More on that later. Oh, God. So, yeah, October is very busy, but beyond Remembrance Day, November is a pretty quiet month. I've gone out several times in November to visit just because it's a little quieter. And always check to see what places like the Adams County Historical Society are doing. They're always running programs just about every day of the week, especially on the weekends. Last time I was in Gettysburg in November, they had a presenter speak about a officer that was originally from Pittsburgh, served in the Great War, and ended up spending the rest of his life out in Gettysburg. Actually, if you give me a moment, do I have it up? Oh, I still have it. Humble collector like this. This is what I was talking the last time I was out in Gettysburg in November. Adams County Historical Society had in this case, the editors, Stephen Trout and Ian Isherwood. They were out there and they were doing a presentation about this, about these memoirs from Harry Dravo Parkin. I have actually not read this yet since I bought it. Now, Humble Collector has, so if you're interested to learn what our thoughts may be on this, go ask a Humble Collector on his next video what he thought about Serpents of War. I don't think he's done it yet. I think he's about 3/4 of the way through. He's been reading it piecemeal in those 2 years since then. But long story short, yeah, go check out what the Adams County Historical Society may be up to the weekend, or the week or weekend you're going to be out visiting. Of course, we're still in the middle of the federal shutdown, so I don't know what's going on with the actual visitor center and the National Military Park. So, check out some of the private sites. There's plenty to do, even with the lockdown going on, or shutdown, whatever you want to call it. Because it's near Halloween, and that's a time of ghost facers. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of ghost facers in Gettysburg. All right, maybe we're about 15 minutes in. Maybe we need to talk about what we mean to discuss on tonight's show. So, starting off, if I can figure out how to share a screen. It's been a while, guys. I haven't shared a screen since April, I think. I got that. Hold on one moment. What's going on here? I'm trying to see how I can just share the window, but I don't think there's a way. Is there a way? I'm only seeing like one window appear when two. Oh, well, I guess we'll just go down tab by tab. All right, here we are. How are we looking on the stream? We working? We doing good? I can't see you guys now, so hopefully you're seeing me. Oh, God, StreamYards. Okay, I got back over there. Okay, we're good. Okay, I can see you guys now. Just let me know in the comments how we're doing in case something blinks out. I'm a little rusty on how StreamYards works. Okay, you can see. Good. We could see the tab. Very good. Okay, I'm gonna go back over to the tab now. We'll begin reading. So today actually marks the 248th anniversary of the Battle of Red Bank. And you may have not heard of this battle. It was fought during the American Revolution. This was fought on the New Jersey side of Delaware River on the outskirts of Philadelphia. Long and the short of it was, in late September of 1777, the British Army, commanded by General William Howe, had managed to land in the Chesapeake Bay, march overland through Maryland, Delaware, and into Pennsylvania, defeated Washington's Continental Army in the Battle of Brandywine, and it kind of kicked them to the northern outskirts of the rebel capital, Philadelphia. The British take Philadelphia, but it's a hollow victory. Congress had fled, had enough time to get out of there, and they escaped initially to Lancaster, but eventually they'll settle in York, Pennsylvania for the winter. Washington is planning an attack on the British Army in the northern outskirts. That would eventually become the Battle of Germantown. And then there's the fact that there's 3 forts south of Philadelphia guarding the Delaware River, preventing Howe's brother, Vice Admiral Howe from coming up with his Royal Navy and bringing the bulk supplies to the British Army. So what resulted was basically a 2.5 month long campaign to neutralize these free American outposts, which had very small garrisons. The first one was Billingsport. It fell very easily, didn't have a lot of men defend it. The second one was Red Bank, or sometimes called Fort Mercer. And well, things didn't go according to plan for the British on October 22nd, 1777. And today you can go visit the site of Fort Mercer and the battlefield of Red Bank. Like I said, it's on the New Jersey side of Delaware. I was really hoping a couple weeks ago, I was in Philadelphia. I really wanted to go see Red Bank Battlefield. Let's just say a certain warship named after the Garden State consumed my entire Sunday, and I didn't have time to go the extra half hour drive down to go see Red Bank. That being said, we'll still talk about Red Bank in the next episode of Retracing History. But in the meantime, I want to give a shout out to the friends of the Red Bank Battlefield who preserved the site where this event occurred. And the long and short of it, if we go over here to the Battle of Red Bank, you'll learn about the battle. You can see here that the friends have produced a number of different videos talking about the fight and it happened in Red Bank. The long of the short of it is, yep, there we are. Oh, so it's sharing the first tab, but we can't go to the second one. That's interesting. Anyways, the long of the short of it is that the Battle of Red Bank, it was predominantly Hessian units that were with the British Army, and they were tasked with neutralizing the American garrison at Red Bank. Now, initially, Fort Mercer, when it was established, was this massive earthen defense that was way too much ground for like the free 400-man garrison. It was actually stationed there to cover it. The French engineers aligned with the Continental Army came down, took one look at it, and told the commander there, like, yeah, you got to make a tiny fort, actually. So they built a fort within the fort. They built a redoubt. And the command of the post was under Christopher Green, who was a relative, actually, of Nathaniel Greene, who would go on to be famous for later battles with the Continental Army against the British. Christopher Green had predominantly troops from Rhode Island. I think he had some Connecticut troops as well. I could be mistaken. I want to say there was Pennsylvania, New Jersey militia as well inside the fort. And unfortunately for the Hessians, commanded by Colonel von Donop, they didn't see this inner redoubt. They saw the outer fort and they didn't really see any enemy troops on the outer wall. So they kind of presumed they're going to have an easy victory. And Karl von Donop in particular was very frustrated at what had happened to fellow Hessians in the Battle of Trenton in 1776. He wanted revenge. And there's a mythologized quote that essentially has him saying, I will be standing within Fort Donop tonight or die trying. Guess what happened to him? So the Hessians, they launch attack. There were British units also assisting them. They were supposed to come in on the different flanks of the fort. You know, some of the soldiers are supposed to rush in from the north. Some are supposed to rush up from the south. And well, they get over the outer wall, don't see any Continental troops inside, think they won the battle, and then they come under fire from Greene's troops within that inner redoubt. And to make matters worse, not only are they taking fire from Greene, they also have to deal with some of the Continental Navy gunboats that are in the Delaware River under command of Commodore John Hazelwood. They start opening broadsides upon the old outer wall, if that's making sense. So von Donop and his Hessians, they're trapped in a crossfire. And when the smoke cleared, it was called about, like, I think it was like 100 Hessians were killed, including von Donop himself. About another 200 have been wounded. Several more are going to be taken prisoner. It is a complete disaster for the British. It's actually the only American victory, definitive American victory in the entire Philadelphia campaign. They completely caught the British off guard in this small action. StreamYard did a bit of an update on their UI, and some of the buttons look a little different. I tried to share my screen a couple weeks ago and accidentally left the studio instead. Oh no! Ooh, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do a Wrangler. No, it's not your fault, Wrangler. It's StreamYards is a tricky bitch. So that's the Battle of Red Bank. Ultimately, the Continental Army would have to evacuate Red Bank a few weeks later. They would also have to evacuate the fort on the Pennsylvania side of Delaware, Fort Mifflin. More on that Saturday here on Redoubt Productions. And eventually this fell into British hands. But even though the British eventually take out all of the Delaware River defenses, like I said, it chewed up months in their plans to capture Philadelphia. Months that they could have been off supporting other British armies in North America, like John Burgoyne's army, who ended up getting pinned down by Benedict Arnold and Philip Schuyler, and eventually Horatio Gates took all the glory for that in the Battle of Saratoga, leading to Burgoyne's surrender of the British Army there. And the Battle of Saratoga ultimately is what convinces France to recognize the United States as an independent country and provide military aid. So you can go visit Red Bank today. There's no real fort there anymore. It's just really earthworks. I was told there's a lot of cool things to see there. Like there's a house that actually was there during the battle. It was owned by the Whitehall family. We'll read a little bit about them. Go down a little bit farther. After moving in, James and Anne Whitehall added to their family with the birth of a son named Joseph, a daughter named Hannah, a daughter named Sarah, and a son named John. They also had 2 other children who died early in childhood. Trying to read down here, see where it talks a bit about the battle. It talks more just about the general family. I was hoping there would be a bit more. I've been told that the Whitehall House, which is now kind of the museum for Red Bank Battlefield, that it's became a field hospital immediately after the battle. So I really wanted to go see this. I just didn't have time. Let's see what else we got down here. The hero, Jonas Cattell. Jonas Cattell was born in 1758 on a farm called Lavender Hills. The farm was located just outside Woodbury, New Jersey, in what is now Deptford. While growing up, Jonas loved the outdoors and explored the woods. And then on October 22nd, he apparently became a hero. At the time, a force of Hessian troops were camped in Haddonfield. Jonas was said to have been apprenticed in a blacksmith in Haddonfield, but had stayed there too late and was arrested by the soldiers for violating curfew. His punishment was to spend the night in jail until first light. During the night, Jonas overheard the Hessian soldiers discussing a surprise early morning attack they were planning the following day. They planned to march to Fort Mercer on the Delaware River and overthrow the American patriots there. Jonas Cattell was familiar with all the back trails in the area, and in fact, he knew how to create. He was known to have created some of these trails. When he was released the following morning, Jonas used those back trails and ran the 10 miles from Haddonfield to Fort Mercer so he can warn the Patriots. Thanks to his knowledge in the area, he arrived well before the Hessians. This warning allowed the Americans to strategically position themselves to defend their fort. Even though the American Patriots were outnumbered by 3-1, because they were able to prepare for the battle against the Hessians, they were able to defeat them and inflict heavy losses. Jonas Cattell died in 1849 at the age of 91. He's buried in the family burial plot in Deptford, and his grave is located on Melvin Avenue. So that's pretty interesting. Got a local hero here. There's always, with these battles, there's always somebody running to warn the side they're friendly toward. Every battle this time period does. You can go on the website here, break down some of the perspectives. The Hessian soldiers, of course, the Continental troops that were involved there. And of course, as well, there were British soldiers also involved. I mean, we always talk about the Hessians, and I think we kind of accidentally corner them off. They were a piece of a larger army. And what's been really interesting, I wish I could click this, but I think if I click this, it's not going to show up. I'll have to open another link. So I'll let you guys do it later on. A few years ago, they were digging test pits at Red Bank Battlefield. The idea was to give archaeological students field experience. And this is nothing uncommon. They weren't really expecting to find much. If they found stuff, great. If not, this was all about the experience of how to measure out the pits you were digging. They were digging like a half an acre that had just been acquired by the county park. And it was known where the part of the dry moat that was in front of Fort Mercer was located. So they were digging in this narrow portion of the dry moat. And they ended up excavating several skeletons. And they found that they were mostly from Hessian deceased from the battle. So these soldiers have been killed. They were burying them, just throwing them into the dry moat and covering it up with dirt and garbage. So I've heard a couple different things about it. I even watched a a lecture for the American Revolution Institute about the archaeology that's been ongoing. So this was a accidental discovery. They were never intending to find human remains, but it does remind us that these battlefields, you never know where burials may be. Even if they say we haven't found any human remains, we haven't found human remains yet. So, in honor of today being the 248th anniversary of the Battle of Red Bank, I'm going to drop a link. So if you want to go over and learn more about it, I have it in the chat. I should also have it in the description below the live stream. All right. Well, let's see here. We're going to stop sharing that. What happened? Did I go back on the screen? Okay. I don't get why I got free windows open, but it ain't letting me go into the one I want to eventually use a separate window to stream a video. I don't know if it's going to work out the way I was hoping earlier today. All right, let's go down a little bit down the rabbit hole. So this was something I just kind of was scrolling through the hate book and was seeing these images of this massive wooden warship being sunk immediately after World War II. It got my interest. I didn't know nothing about this until today. So we're going to read about it now. So have you ever heard of the HMS Implacable? We're going to read here a bit from an article from Ed Nash's Military Matters. The HMS Implacable, the battleship that served for 149 years and then got blown up. This is the story of a truly remarkable and tragic ship. The HMS Implacable literally served throughout the entire golden age of the Royal Navy, when that force dominated the world's oceans for a century and a half. Launched in France as the, I'm not tempted French, in 1800, the 74-gun third-rate ship of the line served with the Napoleonic Navy, fighting at the Battle of Trafalgar on October 21st, 1805. This battle would cement British naval supremacy until the Second World War. And I'm not reading French again, was lucky to escape. One of only 4 French ships to get away. However, she was to be captured 2 weeks later in a battle that mopped up the remains of the French and Spanish Armada and was renamed the HMS Implacable, the first Royal Navy ship to bear the name. In this guise, she served the Royal Navy throughout the Napoleonic Wars, including fighting a Russian warship to a standstill in 1808 and in years after. In 1840, she took part in the bombardment upon an Ottoman city before being docked in Davenport as unseaworthy in 1842. In 1844, she was taken out of commission. Then, in 1855, converted into a training ship for boys and served as that role in several decades. Technically, her name would be given to a formidable class battleship, but she continued to be known as the Implacable and serve as a training ship. And there's her replacement, which, ironically enough, the original Implacable outlived its replacement by many years. The Implacable needed several refits to stay in the water throughout the 20th century, but she carried on, enjoying periodic public sponsorships in the 1930s, and then survived bombing raids by the Luftwaffe during the Second World War. That conflict saw another namesake enter service, the first of a class of aircraft carriers. And there you see this image here. In 1943, the ship to the right is the HMS Victory, the flagship of Admiral Nelson during the Battle of Trafalgar, and on the right is the hull of this Implacable ship. But where battle couldn't kill the old ship, the politicians and more practically, their finances could. Completely broke after World War II, every possible expenditure the British government needed to be cut. The Implacable needed £200,000 for restoration work, and that would be about £7 million in 2020 currency. It might seem a little trifling by government standards, but it was more than the government were willing to pay. So in 1947, she was offered to the French as a possible museum ship, but they had their own money problems. So on December 2nd, 1949, the HMS Implacable was towed out into deep water, a charge was placed on board, and she was scuttled. She was 149 years old up to that point, and second only to the Victory as the oldest warship in the Royal Navy. Though a tragedy from a historical point of view, the public outrage that was sparked forced the government of the day to guarantee the preservation of the clipper Cutty Sark, which remains in Greenwich Docks as a museum which has enthralled generations of children. So, when we get into talking about historical preservation, I mean, nothing's forever. And you always hear these stories, especially recently. We've heard a lot of stories about museum ships having a lot of maintenance problems. A few years ago, we had a terrible scare with the USS Sullivans up in Buffalo, New York, uh, due to the ice in the water. It ended up breaking through a fin part of the ship's hull and ended up sinking in Lake Erie. Now that was terrifying. It ended up getting raised back out of the water, but it's going to have to undergo a massive restoration effort. It'll have to go into a dry dock. And I think they said they're going to take their submarine, the USS Croker, in dry dock at the same time. So it is a constant battle to preserve these items. Nothing is guaranteed. You need constant funding to constantly maintain this stuff because everything wants to decay and rot. Nothing wants to last forever. We're a bit crazy as historical preservationists. We are literally fighting against Father Time. And unfortunately, we lose those battles more often than not. And that was the case with the HMS Implaceable. Uh, After World War II, the British government just had no funds to maintain this very historic warship. I have heard some curt comments on the internet, though, doing research, and it's like, well, you know, it was a French ship in the British Navy. So if they had to choose between the two, yeah, they're going to take the victory over the Implaceable any day. And even more tragic, I got footage actually, if I'm allowed to play this from the BBC, you know, the BBC, you know, you have to pay a license to watch their stuff if you live in Britain. You gotta pay. You gotta pay. You gotta pay for the right to have TV. You know, God forbid, and if you don't want to have your TV, you still gotta pay for that darn license, from what I gathered. Yes, gotta pay for that horrible, uh, ch- uh, the horrible shows are shown. You don't want to watch any of it. Too bad. You're paying the license. The king says so. I'm just gonna rant about the British now. I feel like ranting about the British today. Maybe I should just play my intro again. That'll make me feel good, right? In any case, this is footage from 1949. I'm just gonna kind of skim through here. This is showing the scuttling of the HMS Implaceable after the Second World War, because the British government had no funds to maintain the warship. And it was actually ended up being sunk under both British and French ensigns flying from the back of the warship. And I have found photographs. They took the figurehead on the front off. It's preserved. And the very back of the stern galley, like not the galley itself, but the facade of it, was also torn off, and it has been preserved as well. Gosh, I don't know how I'd feel being ordered like this to fire a piece of history like this. Just fire upon. It's like, yes, fire upon that historic, that priceless warship. Yeah, well, I not would not want to do it. Would not want to be in the position of those gunners on that ship. I mean, you hear a lot about, you know, a lot of these ships, like in the Great Lakes, I found there's a lot of ships when they reach the end of their life, they would sink them, but it was more because we may use the hulls later and the water's so cold. So when they were sinking them, they were trying not to destroy them. But I mean, this is an absolute scuttling. You know, this is the end of the ship. It's never coming back. So the HMS Implaceable, 149 years. It was a prize of, it was a ship taken prize by the Royal Navy in the Napoleonic Wars, and had to be scuttled because of the economic impact of World War II. So you could kind of argue this is a casualty of the Second World War. I mean, there it is, nothing left. So let that be a warning. And what happens if historical preservation groups do not get support? Their piece of their artifact may end up like the HMS Implaceable. So did not know about that until last night. Actually, I was just going through and I just saw these images of this like World War II era destroyer looked like destroying this Napoleonic War vessel, and I had to go invest. I had to go and investigate. All right. So there's a certain that looks like my bank account after the divorce. Oof. Oof. The implaceable, that's ooh, not a good image, Wrangler. I'm a little scarred now. Need a little bit of water. Just give me one moment, guys. Need my water to keep me hydrated. Hydration is important within this historical bastion, or should be bastion of historical preservation, but I've flubbed it so many times ending my videos. I'll say this historical bastion of historical preservation. I should just say historical for a third time. You know, just make the trilogy. Just get it over with. You know. So you probably noticed what the leading headline was for tonight's stream. I've had several questions about my opinions of this, and I don't think my opinions are gonna. I think they're gonna go against the grain, unfortunately. But here we go. So Angel Studios have been having quite the rocket success, or at least rocket attention lately. They got the rights a number of years ago for Sound of Freedom, which, if I'm not mistaken, that was it a Fox production? And then when it was getting made is when Fox got bought out by Disney. And then by the time it was done and ready to be put out in theaters, Disney basically put a hold on it ever being released. And then Angel Studios were the ones that basically forked over enough money to convince Disney to let go of the movie. And then they got Sound of Freedom. And that was a big hit. Was it back in 2023, 2022? Please tell me it's not more than 2 years that came out. Please tell me I'm not getting old that old that quickly. And then ever since then, everybody's been talking about Angel Studios, which is, very big in making movies based around Christian teachings. They've done a couple different other movies since then, but that's the key. I always want to tell people they like Sound of Freedom, and I enjoyed Sound of Freedom myself. But Sound of Freedom was not their production. They just happened to be the one distributing it. Really haven't seen a movie from them that was actually produced in-house, which I probably should, but nothing's really been catching my attention. I know they were doing something on, like, what was it, like, it was like a nun or something, like an Italian nun or something that came over to New York around the early 20th century. They did a biopic on her. Uh, they've been doing a couple of, they did recently, didn't they do was it like Scratch or something? It was like a kid's, like I guess you want to say, family picture with like all these cartoon creations coming to life. That seemed interesting, actually. I just wasn't was I didn't have the motivation to go see the theater. Also, the fact I wasn't going to an AMC theater because that's the nearest theater near me that shows like semi-obscure titles that are being released, or indie titles right now. I ain't going to AMC theater. Hell no. Do you guys know about my rant about AMC? You know what? Before we talk about Young Washington, let's rant about AMC theaters. I feel we should. So, to give you an idea, movies in my location, the closest theater to me is a one-screen, family-owned movie theater. I love going to when I have the chance, but they hardly ever play something I'm interested in. And I understand to an extent they're playing what have the broadest interest. So usually they're playing, on paper, what would have broadest interest. They're playing stuff from DreamWorks or Disney. Yeah, I can go on a whole other rant about those movies. So it's nothing I'm really interested in. They did play Jaws. They did play the 50th anniversary of Jaws, and of course it was when I was out of town. So would love to go to support the theater, but they hardly ever are playing stuff that's my cup of tea. So the next closest theater is an AMC theater. And this AMC theater is the grodiest theater to go into. It's always fails. I always have the most obnoxious crowds in them. They won't, the butter thing, the butter spittoon, I guess you want to call it, that spits out the butter for me. It never wants to give out the right amount of butter. Everything is way too expensive. Like a bottle of water, I'm paying like $7 for, I think. The seats are uncomfortable. I never have a good experience at this AMC theater. The last time I went to it was Oppenheimer. That was like 2023, because I had to go see Oppenheimer. And I was just like, this is it. This is the big history movie for the year. It must go. And I enjoyed Oppenheimer, but I bit my tongue the whole 3 hours just being in that theater. So yeah, I don't really get out to see movies much anymore. Partially because there just isn't a lot that interests me, but also because whenever there's something piques my interest, it's only in the AMC theater, and I ain't going there. I won't do that. So that's my rant about my local AMC theater. Angel Studios, they're releasing Young Washington. It's like the first big French and Indian War movie we've gotten in like what, 3 decades since Last Mohegans? I mean, okay, there's been a couple other small independent French and Indian War films, but sorry, the less said about them, the better. So let's see the trailer for Young Washington, if I can pull it up properly. All right. Please let me know if you have audio. Do we have audio on those first 3 seconds? Then we can actually begin. Just let me know, guys, in the chat right now. Need to know, so if I have to do any tinkering, if I have to splice some wires, if Editor Chan got to get under the hood of StreamYard, she can. Okay, we have audio. We're good. Okay, no, Editor Chan, you don't have to splice wires today. All right, let's continue forward. So here's the trailer for Young Washington.
What happened, Washington? All those bullet holes in your jacket?
I'm assuming what we're seeing here is a depiction of the Battle of Fort Necessity. I think it is. There's a lot of water behind that very crude breastwork, I guess. Like, what is that? Like, they took sod. It's like they took grass sod and put up against, I hope, some type of wicker work. It could be Braddock's Defeat, but if this is Braddock's Defeat, that'd be the Monongahela River. Then, no. no earthworks. No, they didn't have earthworks at Braddock's Defeat. The uniforms, they don't look too far off from 1 to 2 regiments of foot. I forget which one had the yellow facing at Braddock's Defeat. I'm going to say this is Braddock's Defeat, and I have questions already if that's the case. Yeah, that yellow facing. I want to say was that the 44th? I got to look, guys. Was that the 40? Yeah, I'm already starting. Okay, yeah, the 44th Regiment of Foot. Yeah, they had a bit of a yellow face. And what was the 48th? What did they have? I think the 48th had the, maybe it is the 48th. A Regiment of Foot had yellow facing, so those uniforms aren't too bad for Braddock's Defeat, but also, what's with these breastworks?
How are you alive?
I'm assuming this guy's supposed to be Governor Dinwiddie, Virginia governor.
I don't know.
You have no military service.
I don't know how I feel about this uniform here. I don't know. There's something that's just like, it looks so plasticky.
No military service.
I do like this shot here. I guess we're seeing him. I think this is portraying Washington during what I call the Fort de Boeuf expedition, when Washington was sent out by Governor Dinwiddie. No, with no army. It was really just him, the scout Christopher Gist, Tanich Harrison, who was a Seneca half king. He helped out Washington. About like a dozen guys were in his posse. They basically went from Virginia up through western Pennsylvania, up the Allegheny River, all the way to Fort Le Boeuf in northwestern Pennsylvania, with a message requesting the French to stop trespassing in the British territory of the Ohio country, which the French politely told Washington, actually, you're the one trespassing. So this was a few months before Fort Necessity. So I do like this shot of young Washington, with who I presume is Christopher Gist, looking at the wilderness.
You are a boy.
Oh, producer American Underdog. That was the Kurt Warner biopic, right? Which I did like that. That was pretty darn good.
Boy.
That also, I like this shot here of him riding through the forest. The reason I'm bringing up all these forest shots, I've seen other shots in this trailer I can't stand, because they clearly had access to decent forest, or they had the VFX work to mask in a quality Western Pennsylvania forest.
You are not British, yet they send you to speak for them. So that.
Well, actually, sir, he was British. He is a British subject. All of the colonists are British. What you mean is that he is not English, that he's Virginian, or that, that's more
When
I'm being nitpicky.
fail, they'll have someone to blame.
Again, we're definitely getting the Fort LeBeouf expedition. I would presume that's Washington Washington actually talks about dining with the commandant of Fort LeBeouf. And I think it's according to Washington's words that the French commandant basically tells them that it was the absolute design of the French to take the forks of the Ohio, and by God, they would do it because they had the better number game. So there's if you read the remarks, I wish I used to be able to cite the whole thing, but it's been a few years since I've been talking about the remarks religiously. Anyways, there's another image, definitely Braddock's defeat. Not too bad.
Young Washington, you lost in the New World.
I don't know how you feel about his uniform though at Braddock's defeat. There's a lot of dispute over what Washington was dressed in during Braddock's defeat. Some say that he was in an all scarlet coat akin to a British officer, but didn't really have any facing. Others say that he was actually modeling the uniform that would become the clothing of the Virginia Provincial Regiment later in the French Indian War, which is the blue coat with the red facing. There's depictions of both. I don't think he had the yellow facing of the regiments of foot, though.
Who does own this land?
I think I don't know if this is going to be Lieutenant Garrison's party of Mingo warriors who were actually loosely aligned with Washington at the start of the war. I don't know if these guys, I don't know what nation they're affiliated with.
Not the one who has the will to tame it.
No, they're not going to run out into an open field like that. No. I think this may be Braddock's defeat again, but see, then there's a problem there. I'm like, you had your forest shots, and that's good for Braddock's defeat, but now I have this clearing here. Also, not to mention the fact that if we're dealing with Braddock's defeat, it would have been July, and not all, but I presume some of these warriors would have been pretty bare of clothing. They've been down to breech clouts, down the leggings, just because that'd be the most suitable attire to have in wilderness fighting in July in Western Pennsylvania.
You do not want to start a war.
See, there's the prairie. Oh.
So what do? We fight.
Oh, what do? We fight. We're soldiers. Yes, we fight. Kelsey Grammer and George Washington production, always a win. I know he's a very big, he's a big Washington history buff. He was actually played Washington in a made-for-TV movie about Benedict Arnold, and I know Kelsey Grammer is also, Legends and Lies. Is that what he hosts? I think it's Legend of Lies that he hosts. If not, he hosts something through Fox history series. Oh, Andy Serkis, I think, is Braddock. And Ben Kingsley, as I said, Dinwiddie.
Hold your ground! There is no retreat!
What are you called?
So we are getting, I was a little worried here if we weren't going to get anything from Fort Necessity, but there's a brief moment, if I can show you the guts and gore of the most controversial moment of the French and Indian War, the thing that starts, it was so quick, I don't think I'm going to be able to, oh, here we go. This is, I presume, portraying the Jumonville Glen incident, which is where in May of 1754, Washington had come back out to Western Pennsylvania. Now he has Virginia provincials with them. He's expecting reinforcement from other colonial units. He makes camp in the Great Meadows that'll eventually become Fort Necessity. He gets word from his native ally, Tanacharison, the half king, that there's a French scouting force nearby. Washington and Tanacharison surround this French encampment. There's a brief skirmish, and at the end of it, the French commander, Joseph Coyon de Jumonville, is killed. Some say slain by Tanacharison himself. Others say he's killed in the crossfire. I have several videos on this channel that, me with more of a clear head better explains than me with some very now cold mulled wine. I thought it was mulled cider, which I don't know, maybe it's working. So I'm happy to see we're getting stuff from 1754 from Fort Necessity. Are we going to get Fort Necessity itself? I don't know how I feel about. It's looking like we're borderline going toward Plains Indians. Oh no, this is always a problem with most French and Indian War productions, or really any production that's to portray Native Americans in the East Coast area. They always portrayed them like plain Indians with all these like deer skin stuff and everything. It's like Eastern Woodland were they had their various attires, but when they're going to combat, more often than not, some of these guys are pretty much bare bones, just down to leggings and breech clouts. It's hot and humid in Pennsylvania. I cannot stress this enough. Or anywhere in the Ohio River Valley in the summer. You don't want to be clove to the nines. I'm just saying. But also, I'm by no means the biggest expert on Native material culture. I'm more familiar with my research with the Virginia Regiment and the Pennsylvania regiments for the French and Indian War. So I'll throw my hands up. This is like a good time for if I could find James Blake, right? He's with the Washington County Historical Society, and he's made a few videos on YouTube before. And he's really into Native. I almost want to ask what his opinion on the portrayal of who I presume in this case are Tanacharison and his Mango allies.
My name is George Washington.
Coming out July 3rd, 2026. Young Washington. So there you have my opinions. Like I said, I'm not, I really want this to work. The last great movie about the French Indian War was in 1992. It's Michael Mann's Last of the Mohegans. I can't stress enough how fantastic that movie is in portraying the fighting around Lake George in 1757. It's not perfect by any means. There's more of the issues I have. There's stuff that appears. It's like it's right for the period, but it's not right for that region, if that makes any sense, which is very similar. Like if you watch Glory, for example, and you're like, all this stuff's cool. This is cool seeing all this stuff that an average federal soldier would go through during the American Civil War, but not accurate for the actual 54th Massachusetts. That's like what I'm talking about. There is a lot of things that get me nervous, and that's because we've had two previous independent projects that were backed by film production companies and filmmakers that were very much on the we're doing this to spread the word of Christianity train. That's not making a knock on any religion. I personally, I feel I shouldn't say all religion. I feel Christianity has a lot of great values that should definitely be espoused. And of course, those are the values that our founding fathers took for granted. They're the ones that are like, these are the values that we grew up with. This is what we're accustomed to. This is how we decide right and wrong. The problem is, you have so many Christian filmmakers that get so focused on having Christ physically appear in the movie that they forget about telling an actual good story. It's like, but we got to check off the 10 commandments. I got 1, 2, 3. We got to make sure all 10 are here. And we got to make sure the audience has their notebooks ready to check each one off. No, if you're hammering the message in, then your message is failing. It's not good enough. Your message should be able to perfectly fit the glove of whatever story you're trying to tell. It should just come naturally. Now, Angel Studios has been pretty good at actually being very subtle with, taking a very strong moral lesson from Christian teachings and applying it to a movie production, be it a production about a historical event or being just an interesting story. So I trust Angel Studios. They've done a lot of good work. I do feel this may be their I want to say make or break moment. If this works, this is going to set Angel Studios to be around for a long time as a major producer of movies. If this doesn't work, they're going to stay as an obscure, sideshow. There's a lot riding because I think this is like the first major historical film they've tried to done. They've done a few stuff like in the 20th century, and I know they've done their stuff with adapting the Bible and telling Christ's story and stuff. And I've heard good things. What was the one? It was like a whole TV series, but it wasn't really on TV. You had to like stream it. What was the name of it? It's just basically like Jesus Christ. But I've heard a lot of people say it was actually really good, and I've always been meaning to actually give it a watch. The Chosen. It was The Chosen. Yeah, I think it was The Chosen. But there's been a trend. The past, here's my point. There have been two previous Christian film productions about the French-Indian War very recently. The first was Washington's Armor, which actually tells the same story as this. It was about Washington during the Fort LeBoeuf expedition and later the Jumonville Glen affair. And the idea was it was going to become a multi-part movie series. It was made by a production team down in Texas. I watched it. I actually have a physical copy of it. I helped, I was one of them backers. I wanted to see it made. It was fine, but there was definitely those moments where they paused, like, okay, got to pause the movie and tell you how great Christ is. Yes, Christ. Forget about Washington. Christ. It's all about Christ and nothing else. Okay, we can go back to him going Washington about to drown in the Allegheny River. Back to Christ. Buddy Christ. Buddy Christ. George Carlin could be out there to introduce Buddy Christ. That's how Washington's Armor went. Then there was Love, Courage, and the Battle of Bushy Run. I may make one of these days a mistake and maybe make a certain fundraising goal for the channel that if we hit a certain dollar amount, I will open up a bottle of something and watch that movie. Bless the creators' hearts. I'm glad they decided to tackle the Battle of Bushy Run. Not a lot of Americans know about the importance of the battle. Oh boy, was it a rough watch. They couldn't find nobody to distribute it. And it just got dumped on Amazon Prime earlier this year. And I sat down and watched it. And yeah, I don't think it may not have been really like one of them Christian productions. It was like we had a really good idea and we didn't have the budget and we didn't want to stop and we should have stopped. There's Highlanders with nice trimmed beards that should be in a Civil War setting, not in a French and Indian War setting. There's the dinkiest little flour sack fort I've ever seen portrayed. Like it fits in my bedroom. And this is supposed to protect the entire army. No. You got Colonel Bouquet, just the never ending, the pistol that never runs out of rounds. It's real bad. And then you have the issue that I brought up earlier about the Plains Indian, the 50s Hollywood Plain Indians for Eastern Woodland Indians. There's a horrible CGI rendering of Fort Pitt with the flag of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, like the actual seal of the city, just flying over the fort, black and gold, form view. No. It was rough. So if you ever want me to watch that movie with a bottle of something, it's going to take a pretty penny, guys. I'm just going to lay guys out there, but it is if you guys badger me enough, we may make that as a fundraiser for the channel. Maybe that's how we'll get to finally go to, I don't know. That'll be how we finally get to go to Washington, D.C. or go to Fredericksburg or something. That's how we'll fund that trip. See, Readout Productions get shit-faced watching a terrible rendition of a battle only he knows. Pain. And Ringer pops in. Christian storytelling is becoming quite the discussion in some corners of YouTube. It is. And it's because we're very close to the pendulum swinging back in a positive way. For decades, Christian storytelling basically was about hammering in, you must love Christ or else, without actually explaining why you should love Christ. It's like, here's a great example of why Christ is good and why his teachings should be espoused to future generations. Instead, it's like, nope, Christ is the Almighty. Why? He's the Almighty. There's no explanation. He's just the Almighty. You don't question the Almighty, which, I mean, you shouldn't question Christ, but Readout Productions should not provide religious advice nor financial advice. Now I'm getting distracted because I think Fred is over here in the corner playing with the door. I keep hearing pulling of something, and I think it's him. I don't see anything, but you know, Fred's all gray, so he's stealthy. He's a very stealthy cat. So, but no, it's been a hot subject matter. I mean, it's kind of a bit like, you know, you hear about Captain Garrett talking about save the cat and all the what do you want to call the framework of all these stories and how they work, because the framework is long established. Use the framework. The key is, can you manipulate the framework to your advantage? You know, you don't want to just copy and paste, but it's like, this is the framework I'm in. Now, how can I espouse upon it? How can I, what's the word I'm looking for? How could I enhance the framework? You know, how could I make it hyper enhanced or something like that? You get what I'm saying. The frameworks are there. Tropes are not a bad thing in storytelling, contrary to what all of your deconstructionists will tell you. They love to deconstruction. You know, those frameworks are there to keep your story intact. There's a reason the 3-act story structure is the 3-act story structure and not the 5-act story structure. What I'm saying is, Christian storytelling is very much a framework in storytelling. It's like, here are the pieces. You know, it's already laid out, all of Christ's teachings. Here they are. The Bible is filled with endless archetypes for telling moral stories. But don't just simply copy and paste word for word, unless, of course, you're doing a full-on authentic adaptation. But you like take the framework and now enhance upon it. How can you apply this to this situation, that situation? I do not want to feel like the screenwriter is reading to me from the Bible. I don't want to feel that. I can go read the Bible. Yeah, I can go do that on my own time. I can go get educated on my own time. I should not feel like the screenwriter is reading to me, and then Pomni sat next to the coal miner's helmet because she was terrified of all the horrors that would go on whenever a roof would fall in the mine. All I should really have to do is just hyper zoom on Pomni's terrified face. Is this making sense? I hope I'm making sense. Wrangler's going to try to tell me if I make sense. Jesus was a storyteller. That's important. Jesus was a storyteller. That's how he taught. So Christians should honor him by actually trying to write good stories. You said it better than I ever could. So Young Washington, I really hope it works out. I will go and see it if it's in a theater that's not my local AMC. I have a problem where I watched K-pop Demon Hunters a few months ago, because everybody was talking about it. And then I came to really like the movie. They're re-releasing it for Halloween. The nearest theater is the AMC theater. Truly is the holy angel and the evil devil on my shoulders. Ain't that one? So hopefully Young Washington gets screened in my local theater and not AMC. And then I will be there July 3rd, 2026 to give you my full thoughts. If Angel Studios pulled it off with a decent, I'm really just asking for them to get the essence of Washington's story correct. I understand you're probably going to have to abridge things. And that's fine in history movies. I'm always down for that. I understand that you may have 100 characters and it's like, look, the crowd's only going to remember 3 or 4 names. So let's just consolidate them. I'm 100% fine with that. Just long as the essence of the events is accurate and doesn't make something up. That's all what I ask. You can simplify it. Just don't make stuff up and, strive to make it look accurate. It's not hard. Everybody says it's hard to be accurate. No, you just got to do your research. And there's many people willing to provide their research to you. From basically all we want is a credit on, just to say that we did this work for decades. We are helping you out, make your life easy. This is what we're telling you. How based off of the evidence we've cultivated over the years, what these guys wore, what they're armed with, what they said, what they did. All we ask is just a credit at the end of it. But unfortunately, time and time again, Hollywood's like, nah, that's too hard. Put them in deerskin. Make the tail of the raccoon cap down to their trousers. That's all I ask. So that's young Washington. Hopefully my reaction entertained you or ticked you off or something. I don't know. Moving down the rabbit hole. We moved down the rabbit hole. We got more to talk about. Oh yeah, we are not finished yet, guys. I think we're like barely halfway through the stack of stuff. I knew tonight was going to be a bit of a longer stream for us. It's our return, Uncut History's return. But first, if you can indulge me, I'm going to get a quick drink of water. BRB.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
I don't know why I felt like playing Joe Pesci, but sometimes you just got to play a Joe Pesci clip. Why was he asking what the F was Mockingjay? That was an edit for a pet project of myself and a few others. It was only about a year ago we did. It was it like late 2023, early 2020? Or was it? When did me and Billy Bob and Lord Otter and Snow, when did we all get together? And I think Kahuna was there. We all got together to read The Hunger Games. We really need to get back together and find some other horrible piece of text, some horrible modern, popular New York Times best-selling lister and read it and suffer the consequences. Like the Fourth Wing. Oh God, that was painful. Why am I wearing an engineer's cap? Don't question it. Hey, Maji Jan has joined us. She is free from work. She has been set free. Very good. It is great when you're free from work. Then after about 48 hours and you're like, I need funds. I need to go back to work. As much as you don't want to admit it, I know that feeling. It's true. Being away from work is great, but after 48 to 72 hours, then the money shakes begin, as I like to say. Oh no, Redoubtist has a train conductor hat on. Oh no, indeed. I have my train conductor hat on. And Wranglers advising Manji to run away before I foam to death from all the trains. The something snake stream. Oh God. Oh God, the something snake stream. Oh, let's not talk about that. No. Let's talk about trains. I like trains. Trains are cool. Trains, they go on the train track and they go in a straight line and they go very, very fast and, they make cool noises and they look cool. And for some reason, us in the United States just refuse to improve our trains. Instead, we just decide to let them rot. Yeah, it's trains. Trains are cool. U.S. government doesn't understand how to use trains, though. Most Americans don't nowadays. Anyways, why am I wearing my engineer's hat? Well, we have a preservation shout out here. I just discovered about this a few days ago and kind of looked pretty similar to a train we actually explored on Retracing History. Do you guys remember the Liberty Liner? It was in the last video I did on the East Broad Top up to this date. It was a self-propelled train. It was made up of 4 cars and had like the sleek front and the back. It was a streamlined suburb train, essentially. But did George Washington ever ride a train? He, in fact, did not ride a train. Unless you count that he was part of the wagon train of Braddock's army. I mean, he rode in a wagon in one of the supply wagons in the supply train to get to the front in 3 days. Does that count? You know what you should cover? The many train disasters in the West and Northwest. You may like it. There are a lot of them, but I don't want to intrude on other creators' grounds. I kind of feel like the West, I don't know, there's a lot of guys that are on like the West Coast that focus on like the railroads of the West. And I don't feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm appropriate to talk about those wrecks. Maybe stuff more closer here to like Pennsylvania, where I feel it's more in my backyard. That's just me, though. There's a lot of cool stuff to talk about, especially in the Pacific Northwest railroading. So, if I can share the darn page, this has been a problem. Editor Chan, you're going to have to get used to this because we're going to be doing this a lot again. This is how we fund your. This is how we fund the petty cash fund for you. Yes. All right, there we are. We're back on. There we are. The Flying Yankee. Oh no, not Choo Choo Train. No, he didn't ride a Choo Choo Train. Way before his time. The Flying Yankee. We're going to read a bit here from the Flying Yankee Association, which is set out to preserve a very unique piece of New England railroading history. History of the Flying Yankee. The train set known as the Flying Yankee was built in 1935 by the Edward G. Budd Company of Philadelphia. The Boston and Maine Railroad received Unit 6000 in 1935 and used it to replace a conventional steam-powered train with the same name. The new Flying Yankee was a significant departure from conventional trains. While period-typical passenger cars could weigh 120 tons, the entire train set weighed only 113 tons and featured the newest technology available at the time. Nearly the entire cab body was constructed from stainless steel, made possible by an innovative construction method called shot welding, which was developed by the Budd Company. All 3 cars are articulated, which meant each car is semi-permanently attached to the other. Among the top technologies featured on the train was its power source. The Flying Yankee was fast, capable of speeds of more than 100 miles per hour, and was cheaper to operate than conventional steam locomotives. Let me try to show that photo again. This was made possible by an 8-cylinder, 600 horsepower 201A diesel engine built by the Winton Engine Division of the Electromotive Corporation. Everybody got all that? The 201A is the predecessor of many diesel engines produced by GM and is considered the engine that proved the concept of diesels in North American railroading. The 201A is coupled to a generator that turns mechanical power into electricity to power electric motors on the axles called traction motors that move the train. The 201A powered the Yankee through its entire existence. Before the Yankee came the Zephyr, later named the Pioneer Zephyr, which was the first of these new streamlined train sets. It led such success across the western United States that the Boston and Maine, Baltimore's on my mind, Star Spangled Banner, funny, purchased their own. In the height of the Great Depression, this train was a beacon of light in New England. It was quiet, shiny, sleek, and modern, in every way different from the trains it replaced. It traveled all over northern New England on its inaugural run and received crowds of people wherever it went. The Flying Yankee entered service running the Boston, Massachusetts to Bangor, Maine route, holding down this route for 8 years until the train's 132-seat capacity proved incapable of handling the influx of traffic during the Second World War. The train moved to a variety of routes across New York and New England under names such as the Mountaineer, the Minutemen, the Cheshire, and the Businessmen. In its celebrated 22-year career, I almost said Baltimore again. Boston and Maine 6000 ran just over 2.7 million miles before it had to be retired in May of 1957. And here we got some lovely images of the Yankee, the Flying Yankee, next to a steam locomotive. There you can see it in action. Got a nice colored image there. I gotta love this. Like the Great Depression, as terrible as it was for the United States, led to some great railroad innovations, which sadly didn't get to live much longer because World War II happened. And then, the whole railroad industry collapsed thanks to Penn Central, the 1960s. Yeah, that will be a video. So it may be a video this winter, honestly. I really need a rant about Penn Central for a while. But you got a lot of stuff like, Maud, you bringing up all the Western railroads. There's a very unique thing that it was Yeah, it was the Denver. Was it the Denver Rio Grande? I think it was the Denver Rio Grande that came up with it. They came up with the galloping geese, which basically they took these trucks, like literal motor trucks, and then they converted them to be on rail, and they like added on like a back like a school bus almost. So they like put this together, like they kit bashed together like these old like Ford trucks, like Chrysler trucks, and extended the backs so they had passenger seats. And then because it saved on fuel, it was gas powered. That was how they would move passengers during the Great Depression. It was more efficient than firing up a steam locomotive. And now that's a very duct tape way of solving your passenger service and economic crisis. This is a little nicer, a little nicer to look at. Hey, look, there's the Yankee Flyer at Edaville. Instead of heading to the scrapyard, the Flying Yankee was donated to Edaville. Hey, look, that's where it went. A heritage railroad in South Carver, Massachusetts. It remained there for 36 years before being purchased in 1993 by Robert S. Morrell, founder of Heritage, New Hampshire, and Storyland, which was an amusement park. Morrell had hoped to obtain a contract to operate the former Maine Central Mountain Division rail line owned by the state of New Hampshire. He wanted to restore the Flying Yankee and operate it there, but Morrell was not successful in obtaining the contract. And in July 1996, he had to sell the Flying Yankee to the state of New Hampshire. That same year, the Flying Yankee Restoration Group was formed. The plan was for the state of the Flying Yankee Restoration Group. Hey, I read that acronym. I'm not completely gone tonight. You sweet summer child. It is. Okay, I'm being hyperbolic, but it is the reason why the North American rail system sucks today. It is the reason. Oh no, the transatlantic accent. Oh no, that's too challenging for me. I don't do good accents. All I am is a yinzer. See, that's why we have a humble collector, although he's really only good at doing the southern drawl. He turned John Brown into a southerner somehow. It was quite impressive. Where was I at? I got lost. I'm lost. The restoration began in 1997 at the Claremont and Concord Railroad shops in New Hampshire. As the skilled staff of Claremont began the work, it quickly became apparent that nearly 4 decades outside, not good for the Yankee, and the train was in more worse shape than anyone had imagined. Despite significant donations from the Morrell family and grants from the Federal Highway Administration, funding fell through. By 2003, the FYRG were out of funds and work ceased. The working relationship between the FYRG and the Claremont and Concord deteriorated, and the FYRG made the decision to relocate the train. It took 2 years to determine what to do with the Yankee. The FYRG ultimately decided to relocate the train to the Plymouth and Lincoln Railroad, better known as the Hobo Railroad, up in Lincoln, New Hampshire, for the next phase of restoration. Arrangements were made, and the Yankee was moved to Lincoln by road in 2005. The plan was then to start a multi-million-dollar capital campaign that would provide funds to restore and create an endowment fund, which could then support the Yankee after restoration. Enough funding was found to begin some work on the train while the capital campaign commenced. Restoration of the trucks began in 2007 and was completed by 2008. However, the fundraising efforts failed to bring the funds expected to the project, which once again stalled. Thanks to the losing my voice. Thanks to the generosity of the Plymouth and Lincoln Railroad, the Yankee then remained securely stored in their yard for nearly 20 years. The FYRG continued to exist in a diminished form until 2021, when a new group stepped forward to rebuild the board and restart the restoration. As part of that, the name of the organization became the Flying Yankee Association. This new board is focused on preserving the train and restoring it to operation. Fundamental changes have been made to the restoration plan so that the famous Flying Yankee can ride once again, or fly once again. Ha, ha, ha. All right, I'll stop. On July 24, 2024, after an extensive request for proposal process by the state of New Hampshire's Department of Transportation, ownership of the Flying Yankee was sold to the association for $1 after the governor and executive council voted to approve the sale. Then, in July 30th, the FYA wasted no time and moved the Yankee from the Plymouth and Lincoln, which is now the Granite State Scenic Railway. That's a preservation shout out for another day, by truck across the you New Hampshire's Kankamongus Highway, yes, sure, to Conway. For the first time since the 1930s, the Flying Yankee is once again sitting on tracks it originally operated on. The Yankee is currently located in the Conway Scenic Railroad Yard, awaiting its next step in journey, the construction of a building to house the train. Currently, fundraising and volunteers are being called upon for the next phase of restoration to build a shelter or museum that the Flying Yankee can be protected from the elements in and to provide a place to complete the restoration. So there you have it, the story of the Flying Yankee. This is a free car train set powered by a diesel electric motors. Revolutionized passion of railroading, at least up in New England. Really didn't get to, I mean, 22 years ain't too bad. But let's be honest, this thing could run a lot longer. It deserves to have a second life. I always hate seeing these cool looking trains and passenger cars just were cut short their lifespan because you're obsolete, but they look really cool. But it's cost too much money to run it. Yeah, but come on, there's a cool value. You gotta have some style. Not everything has to be a gray block monolith, which is modernism today. Try to distinguish from a locomotive and a McDonald's in 2025. I dare you. So go a little bit more down here. You can learn a bit more about the current projects involved in restoring this piece of railroading history back to action. Talking about restoring the traction motors. See here if we got some. Oh, they got a store. Oh, stores are dangerous. We got hats. I can replace my conductor cap. I like that hat. Ooh. It's a hat with the name of a train on it. Well, that's. I'm just gonna put that in the card. No, I'm not. You're not gonna see my credit card information on tonight's stream. Maybe a little later on. Maybe a little on. So they have a shop here to help support their preservation efforts. Oh, I just kicked myself out of sharing. Back we go. Back we go. Sorry about that. There's a breakdown here. We, of course, read about the history, updates on the project, talking about owners, success. This it's gone backwards, showing how they had to transfer ownership. We talk about the traction motors, frequently asked questions down there. And yeah, so always love getting to see a dedicated group, especially in the railroading community, bringing back these iron horses back to life. Okay, this is a steel horse, technically, but you get my drift. So I'm going to pop the link to the Flying Yankee Association. It'll be in the comment section, but it's also in the description. So if you want to go learn more about it and learn how you can support bringing the Flying Yankee back into operating condition, I'm sure the association will be will be very thankful for any support they are given. But we must turn our attention to some more preservation efforts. So we're staying up in New England. We're bumping over to the North Andover Historical Society after I have another drink of water. Gosh, my voice is going today, or it feels like it's going today. So I'm going to have another drink of water while you enjoy this lovely little clip.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
That's just how I like to imagine myself when I roll into a railroad museum. Yep. Things get dangerous when I show up. I'm just going to start spewing a bunch of gibberish about, I don't know, the K4 or something. So here we go. This is a press release from the North Andover Historical Society, and it's relating to a house whose one resident was actually one of the early militia leaders up in Massachusetts during the American Revolution. He's a military veteran, fought in 2 prior conflicts for the Revolution, and ended up being killed at the Battle of Bunker Hill. So let's learn a little about how you can save Colonel Frye's house. The North Andover Historical Commission placed a demolition delay on the historic house at 169 Chestnut Street in June of 2025, and now it's our turn to take action. Did you know that Colonel James Frye III, a hero of the American Revolution, once called his house home? He bravely led 450 militia and Minutemen into battle, fighting for our freedom and paving the way for the birth of our nation. For over 2 centuries, the Frye property remained in the family, and now it's up to us to ensure its legacy lives on. Let's rally together and raise awareness, funds, and find a solution to preserve this incredible piece of our local history. The clock is ticking. But with your help, we can make it happen. Email Joanna Kerr, Executive Director of the NAHS, today to get involved and be part of something amazing. We got some photographs. Well, first, let me actually pop over here. We're going to pop over here for a moment. This comes from the Hate Book. This was posted by Historical Nerdery. I don't know if he was the creator of it, if this was created for the Historical Society, but this was the site I found this image. And it's a nice graphic to explain who Colonel James Frye was. He was born around 1710, and he was initially a lieutenant with Massachusetts militia in the siege of Louisburg. He then served again as a captain with Massachusetts men during the Crown Point expedition. So siege of Louisburg, that is what some call the War of Jenkins' Ear, or King George's War. No, like War of Jenkins' Ear is between the British and Spanish. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm getting my colonial conflicts, proxy wars confused. Did you know there's a lot of proxy wars that the colonies, the British, French, Spanish colonies in North America waged from their foundings? Yeah, you have a big war over in Europe, and there would be a proxy war. Yeah, a lot of them before the actual French and Indian War, the 1750s. So you had the Siege of Louisburg, which was from the War of Austrian Succession, I should say, or I think it's called the King. I think it's called King James's War, right? I don't know. I'm tired. I'm tired. So he was a veteran of that conflict, the Siege of Louisburg, which actually some people say the Siege of Louisburg is where the origin of the song Yankee Doodle comes from. Everybody says it's relating to the American Revolution. And they've been around in the colonies a lot longer before then. Then we got the Crown Point expedition. And then finally have the Battle of Bunker Hill, where he was a colonel of Massachusetts men. That's where he sadly was killed. He was the age 65. He was commanding militiamen at Bunker Hill at age 65. And a little bit blurb down here. Colonel James Frye of North Parish, which is now Andover, Massachusetts, served with distinction at 3 major colonial conflicts, transforming from loyal British subject to devout American patriot. And again, talks a bit about how the Frye house is in danger. So these are some images of the house over the decades. These are images. Looks like a marker. I think this is actually up on Bunker Hill, listing casualties that were incurred on June 17, 1775. And then on the right there's actually James Frye's headstone. This talks a bit more about the Fryes. This house is estimated to have been built between 1720 and 1750, with elements dating back to the 1600s. It was built by Frye's family, one of the founding families in town, whose descendants owned the property up to the 20th century. James Frye was a veteran of the French and Indian Wars, serving as a lieutenant with George Washington and that's wrong. North Andover Historical Society, you may want to have somebody check this flyer. No, Washington was not involved in fighting in 1745 at the capture of Louisburg. And I don't think I would have to look to see if he was with Washington in 1756. It said he was at the Crown Point expedition, and that was up in New York. He fought in the French and Indian War. I don't know if he was with Washington, though. Yeah, guys, you may want to check on that. Anyways, after leading his men to Lexington on April 19, 1775, James Frye III, colonel of the Essex County Militia, went on to lead the militia, known as Frye's Regiment, during the Battle of Bunker Hill, and made the Essex County Militia one of the most recognized regiments in the colony. On account of the valuable service it rendered at Bunker Hill, Colonel Frye fair enough. You guys get something wrong. I get something wrong. Frye did not die at Bunker Hill. He died in January of 1776. Wait a minute. Yeah, it says on his head. So January the 8th, 1776. Yep, that is correct. I was wrong. I'm a dummy. Colonel Frye died in January of 1776 after succumbing to the wounds inflicted at Bunker Hill, but never saw America's independence on the 4th of July. As we approach the 250th anniversary of America's independence, it's important to reflect on how knowing this history informs who we are as Americans today. The house represents Frye's dedication and service to this country and connects us all to everything he fought for: liberty, equality, and justice. Preserving his house would help future generations learn how important our local history is and how the decision they make will impact the future of our country. We need your help to build an alliance of individuals and groups to raise awareness, find a workable solution, and raise funds for the preservation of the house for June 2026. So, and that's like all the more I can really find right now. I mean, I'll kind of scroll around a bit here on the Andover's Did I just, oh no. Okay, we're good. I thought I just had shareception there for a moment. I'll show you a bit more of the page of the North Andover Historical Society. They're working right now to try to find a solution to save this historic home. Now, I'm wondering why we're in this situation. It sounds on paper like a place that should have been scooped up for preservation many, many moons ago. Now, it did say that the Frye family had it in their possession, must have had it all the way up till last year. I'm wondering how much has been changed about the building, which may make it difficult to get the necessary grants. Because, I mean, you can have a building that's like, yes, this building's been standing here continuously since, say, 1750. But you got to be careful when you go into these preservation initiatives, because if enough has been altered over the years, certain grants and endowments, they're not going to want to, they're going to say, well, this isn't considered as historical now because this was made and that's made and this is irreversible. Doesn't take away from the fact that it's an important spot. I'm not saying that, but it can make fundraising very, very dicey. So definitely these guys are going to be in for a considerable battle in preserving the Frye house. And I hope they succeed. I would love to have the chance to go visit and learn and maybe one day make a retracing history about Colonel Frye. I mean, this guy served in 3 colonial conflicts. I just imagine being 65 years old and going into battle at Bunker Hill. That just boggles my mind, but he did it. It cost him his life ultimately, but he did it. And we're indebted to his sacrifice. So I don't really got a good link to send you. Like they don't have there's not like an entity that's like, we're say the Frye House Inc. or anything like that. So it seems like it's going to be, this fundraising will be done through the North Andover Historical Society. But right now it looks like they're planning on how they're going to raise the funds. We haven't even gotten to the actual fundraising program yet. So before we finish, let me shoot over the link, which again, links in the description below. If you want to Links in the description below if you want to learn more how you can support the preservation of Colonel Frye's house, veteran of the Battle of Bunker Hill. All right. And well, guys, I'm about out of breath. I envy people who are able to stream for hours on end with endless things to talk about, but an hour is enough for me. An hour and a half, now I'm starting to tap out. You can get me rolling sometimes. Don't get me wrong. We have our 2 hours plus streams, but they're not every day. They're when I'm in rare form. And tonight, I'm not in rare form. I'm normal readout. But what you can expect from the channel here, this hat looks big on me. I don't know why. This looks very big. It's bugging me. In any case, what can you expect from Readout Productions in the coming weeks? Saturday, there will be a new episode of Retracing History. You may have actually saw what it's about already. I already made a post yesterday. It'll be about Fort Mifflin. Fort Mifflin was one of the longest serving fortifications in U.S. military history. I mean, its first stones were laid down by the British actually in 1771. Then it became used by the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. It was briefly occupied by the British, or what was left of it, reoccupied by the Continental Army. Then in the 1790s, it was reconstructed by the United States government to have a permanent garrison to protect the seacoast of the United States. And then it saw sporadic use all the way for the War of 1812, the American Civil War, and both World Wars before finally being decommissioned. And I've heard some say 1952. I've heard some say 1953, 1954, early 1950s. It's still standing today on the outskirts of Philadelphia. It was the first stop we made during our Philadelphia Blitz, which, boy, that weekend. I'm not going to spoil everything you're going to see. I'm going to leave some things to be a surprise. Let's just say we have about a half a dozen videos that are going to be coming out in relation to that trip. Yeah, me and a humble collector, we hit the streets of Philly and we hit them running. It was a great time. We got to see a lot of cool stuff. But the first stop was Fort Mifflin. We'll dive into its history this Saturday on Retracing History. I'm going to try to do another Uncut History next week. I don't know what day it'll be. I don't know if it's going to be a Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. We're just going to have to see how my work schedule plays out. Let me be honest, guys. When I come home from work, I'm beat. All I can muster is editing and writing scripts. I can't really do recording in the evenings after work. I'm just here like a schleb, like, So it all depends on how my work schedule is when I can go live and do stuff like this again. But I am going to shoot to have an Uncut History next week, and it'll be spooky themed. Yeah, we'll try to get into the Halloween spirit. I think I'm going to pull some spooky stories, maybe some local Pennsylvania lore, or maybe just some freaky historical event I want to talk about. I'm going to try to keep maybe just to free stories, and then we'll just BS for the rest of the time. So keep that in mind. We will be doing an Uncut History next week. It'll be a Halloween episode, which we've never actually done before for Retracing History or Uncut History. I need to get my shows straight, I guess. I have an artifact highlight that I need to film. Me and a humble collector and a few other folks, we went to the York Mac show back in September. Big military show. We bought more than we should have. A lot of cool stuff. Neither me or him have yet to film our respective videos that I'm aware of about our hauls from the Mac show. So I need to one of these days sit down, put it up there on the record player, on Chill Kids Cow. Yes, Chill Kids Cow will hold a variety of military artifacts as I break them down what we brought into the Readout Productions collection, and hopefully I can get that artifact highlight for you soon. And I just last night had the opportunity to film an acquaintance of mine who did a presentation about the Kentucky long rifle in the American Revolution. And he hit me his permission, and I can post it here on the channel so everybody can get edumericated by his findings. I don't know. I think like maybe either it'll be after the next Retracing History. I don't want to like have them all come out on the same day. I'm trying to space out releases, so that'll be coming out in the near future. So a lot of stuff coming out in the near future. Of course, if you guys have any suggestions for small videos or subjects, I know Maji's been sending me suggestions tonight. She's just talking about you should read about that. Oh no, that wasn't it. She was saying something. She was saying about train disasters up in West and Northwest United States. So if you have any off the top of your head you want to suggest, maybe send them my way. You know where my DM is. You know how to Discord message me. So if you have anybody has any ideas, I'm like, hey, that'd be a great subject for Uncut History. Let me know in the comments below. If you want to post on the community page for the YouTube channel, if you want to email me it, by all means. So I'll always looking to build up the stack of stuff for these live streams. That's kind of what fuels them. These live streams are great for me to delve into historical events that I would not otherwise know about. So thank you guys for watching tonight. But before you leave, there is some house cleaning you need to do. First, if you enjoyed the stream, hit the like button down below, because when you hit the like button, it lets the TubeU algorithm know, hey, you do want to watch historical content on live streams. You don't watch people faking black pilling like certain other streamers on places like Twitch. Yeah, you know what that dig's at. Yeah, you want to be edumericated, not be grift upon. So if you enjoyed this, hit the like button down below. If you want to follow us in our future ventures, consider subscribing here to the channel. If you want to support one of the projects we talked about, be sure to go to the links in the description below. I have them all down there. And we will see you on the next edition of Uncut History. How do I get myself out of here? How do I end the stream? Editor Chan, how do I haven't done this at all. We hit the red button? What happened? But I thought if we hit the red button, bad things happen. I was told in Men in Black, we're never supposed to push the red button. Never mind. I'm pushing the red button.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain.